Hi, this is Tony Smario coming to you from my father, BroSal.org YouTube channel, and this is part 2 of Enlightenment 2018. So you have your time from 12 to 1800, which is, I'm still gaining some knowledge of, but to me it's just remote of that. I just see the way the history rolls out. The people of power have this knowledge they think they have that's hidden, and that knowledge amounts to the fact that they know they're God and there isn't a devil and there isn't a God, and they don't feel threatened, but they like to use that to keep the world feeling threatened. And meanwhile, the indigenous people who don't feel threatened by them have to be destroyed. And I think that's a very important aspect, the genocides of all the indigenous people, right up to today, but certainly up until this real plan starts taking hold in the first 3 world wars into the world that they'd already started creating after they'd gone out and started genocidally murdering all the indigenous people who might, jump in on the side of anyone else and help. And I think it might be those people who are spoken of as the righteous from heaven that come with the man on the white horse. Why wouldn't they be? These innocent people who have just been living by their own, perhaps, law of love your neighbor or some responsibility to their fellow man, if that was the case. And then they're slaughtered by these genocidal maniacs in the name of God. Well, who better to bring them with him when he goes to set all that straight than all those innocents that were have been genocidally murdered. So I imagine those are the people in white raiment that's my first guess at what we were talking about in Revelation 19 in our last Bible study. But now I really do want to bring it right up into the modern day and reflect from this, what I will call the modern day, which is the last 100 years, which I'll always bring back to that establishment of the Federal Reserve, the intention, the Balfour Declaration, the Sykes-Picot Agreement to screw the Hashemites out of what they helped create in destroying the Ottoman Empire and dividing that land up into the divisions I believe are part of what is happening today with the redistribution of that land. These things that went on 100 years ago, there's other things in Russia, the Bolshevik Revolution, of course. All these things going on 100 years ago that are just all over the world, quite deliberate, big money plays to set up Russia industrially to quell the revolution that had started in March of 1917 over there, of the seeds of a democratic revolution or a true social revolution of the people. Instead, our industrialists went and funded the Bolsheviks to slaughter and start slaughtering Christianity. So anyway, that's very easy now to track who they were, why that was the plan. And to get to that history, to really see why we are and to verify, and this is what I see as something very important for me to share with you few that have really been paying attention to me now, is what I feel is my most important contribution and what the track I'm on myself in my own personal vision of enlightenment and understanding is to grasp now how this last 200 years from, say, this, the French Revolution, American Revolution, the Enlightenment, that leads up to the ability to start World War I and these other big moves, Bolshevik Revolution, the industrialization, dividing up the Middle East, and declaring their intentions and starting the oppression and terrorism over there to prepare their Jewish state, and the federal banking system now, officially taking over America, because that had been going on now since the beginning. but officially taking over America. So this is the period of time, I think, and the whole reason to discuss this is not simply a history lesson. It's one, and most importantly, I would say, to get an idea for ourselves of how comes about what we're expecting. For instance, this apostasia Paul predicts, I realize, is not something that just appears on the scene. This has been the wearing away of that church since that, second century and third century, trying to stop these people who have this faith in this God they don't see. Why are you people getting power? Stop spreading that. That is not true to the people who have the power. Wait a minute. That's not true. That is not what we learned from Babylon. That is not what we know from Egypt, from the great Kabbalah, from everything. So that's a bunch of nonsense. Like today you'd talk about some person that falls out of the sky and supposedly everybody's got to follow him because they're from God. So the apostasia is the letting go of that belief that that was the Messiah and the following him. You live by dying and all the things he taught. The fact that better to be persecuted than to take up arms against anybody. Which is why it's so unbelievable that any of these churches could be justified, especially the Catholic Church. I mean, oh yeah, this is the representative of Peter, the guy that went off and got crucified upside down. This is the representative of Jesus who sent his disciples out when he was still alive. No staff, no purse, one tunic to go to tell them to rejoice in the face of their poverty, to not have any needy among them, all this kind of stuff. And here you have the churches, the richest. These are the richest people in the world, walking around in all their jewels, and right. But that's the representative of Christ on the earth. Come on, I mean, how is that not just the most questioned thing within the church itself, instead of a part of their pride, as you'll see when we read this book by this Catholic from 35 years ago. But what's important to me right now in my own life is watching how this apostasia has come about, how it leads to this Santa Claus Christianity that is really the mechanism by which the people in control are able to undermine a belief in God. And of course, using this name of God and Christian country, blah, 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 to do it. Catholics, Protestants, all these hundreds of denominations, or however many there are of these churches, all there to undermine the teaching of Jesus. In the name and teaching of Jesus. In the name of the teaching of Jesus. So what I want to really get into in exploring this book, and we'll read it and comment, and that's why I'm laying down this this background now, this backdrop that I want to discuss this book against my vision of where we're at, and for the two simple reasons that we're expecting this apostasia so the man of sin can arise. We're expecting a 7-year covenant so a church, a temple can be rebuilt. We're expecting a false Messiah who will be a humanist, who will finally bring to reconciliation this new age movement expectation of a Messiah for everyone that satisfies everyone, that has the answers, and brings about a peace. That seems to need to come before the temple's built, but as we've discussed, it could be very possible, as my father and I have been talking about, that this wars and rumors of wars leads to this, what they can talk about as their own solving of it, their own bringing about of a peace and the making of a peace over in that region to build a temple. And because of that, because man rose to the level about the higher frequency they're always talking about in the New Age, and made peace in the face of war, and built their temple as a sign of their good faith with each other. The Messiah came. That's easier to sell to the world than, oh, here's the Messiah and he says build a temple. So anyway, Dad's been exploring this and was sharing that with me a few weeks back, and I've been thinking a lot about it in my research lately, and I have to agree that this, what Dad's calling this, time of peace or era of peace, or however they're going to want to put it, is something that perhaps the propaganda is leading to. That's why the end's not yet, because they're actually going to make a big deal about getting around it. North Korea, we're all going to find a way because we have to, and that's going to show in their, remember, it's all being done as theater, because the real picture is bringing out the true doctrine of Lucifer, which is that we're God. The light is intellect, that we have the means to be Christ-like ourselves. Christ said, you will do greater things than you've seen me do. He didn't say, wait around for me, only I can do it. He said, you will do greater things than you've seen me do. So what about when someone shows up doing greater things? At least if they can make it look that way for us. So I'm expecting this great deception to be centered around what appears to be a mouth speaking great things. So much so that I already know all my friends, many of my family, are going to fall for it. They're going to say, we told you, Tony. That's why I've been trying to say it now, and I think it's so important for us, a couple of dozen, to really find some sort of faith, some conviction, do the research, get the insight. So we realize the Antichrist is not coming as an evildoer with a pitchfork to mark people and force and kill Christians. The world will kill Christians for the Antichrist, who will simply work miracles, heal people, show people that we're all supposed to love each other. And so I'm looking for how these events, how we're going to go from now till then, and I see that it's right on the horizon, because I see that we're in that time. Paul said the world will say peace and safety and sudden destruction. So it can't be except in a time of great war and hostility that this end comes that we're expecting. It can't come out of everybody thinking straight and getting together. So knowing they're creating it, knowing their idea is this world of this golden age, this return to an age of knowledge and wisdom, and no war and all that. That's what they imagine they can do, is they are God. And to do it, they gotta start the process of opening up everybody to the true light of the doctrine of Lucifer. That we're all God, that our intellect is what, if you want to believe in God, then what you have to understand is God created Lucifer to bring us intellect, so that over the evolution of time we might learn how to be like Christ. And we get people that come and show us what Christ is like. And so this, from what I can tell, is their story. And this is the other reason I want to take this time now and relate this book to you, is I want to start bringing out, because I did it about a year ago or so, really started getting into the study of, what do the occult think? Because I was still imagining that somebody's sacrificing babies to demons. And are they, they're reaching demons. There's demonic power. There's supernatural demonic power. And now, while I still will leave that open, if somebody can help me see the evidence of any kind, the rational understanding of that in light of all the scripture. Because to me, if that's the case, boy, they've had that for a long time, haven't they? Aleister Crowley was, he's the guy with him that started NASA, the jet brawn there, the guy, the jet labs, and rocket ships and the whole industrial military complex. The other guy that was the big Satanist there, the General Aquino. These people have had absolute power. They're raising demons from the pit. And yet they can't even come out of the closet yet and bring the true light of the doctrine of Lucifer into the open. They got to get someone like General Pike, a man, to give them a strategy for war on the earth to kill people to get to what they're trying to do. They can't just go get the right demons, raise enough demons, get enough demon raisers, raising demons, right? Apparently the demons don't do much, but give personal satisfaction to the people who raise them. So I'm thinking supernatural power. I don't know. That doesn't make much sense to me. Not when the story is not follow me, I'm the devil. I've got a place better than God's. You think this garden's something? Wait till you see my garden. My place is way better than this. You can do anything you want. Follow me. That's not what the serpent that God made said. The serpent that the Lord God made said, God knows the day that you eat that fruit, your eyes will be opened. You'll know good from evil and be like God, and you won't die. So, and then God comes along and says, now that their eyes are open, they're like us, knowing good from evil. And so there's a mystery. And that's why the mystery schools have a reason for feeling a necessity in their control. Their mystery is far more profound in its understanding of reality than the religious mystery that a God came from the sky and died. And if you don't believe in that God, you're going to hell. And I believe that because perhaps the great enemy is this Messiah who, oh my, only if this guy came from the sky and raised again, boy, does that ruin their story? Does that ruin everything they're counting on? And so the one story they have to count on not being true is that one. And therefore they have to undermine that story. And to do that, they have to make that story look ridiculous. They have to take that story to its most ridiculous and absurd relationship to everything else, so that the people who profess that story can one day be made to look so ridiculous and offensive that it's actually in the world's interest to obliterate. I mean, the story for sure, and the people, because the people doing the obliterating will consider themselves good, they will give you a choice. Accept the mark of the brotherhood of man or be killed. You cannot continue to keep claiming a God other than the brotherhood of man. There is no God but us. That's what the spiritual guide, that's what the Messiah told us. You've seen the miracles. You see that this is the power. You see that this is the reality. You cannot keep saying there's another one. And so we have to get to that point. And then for some darn reason, that has to go on again. And I mean, so all this is a great mystery in all of this. And apparently it's gone on before, since we're told in our own scriptures about these watchers and this, the evil of man and Noah's Ark and the flood. And occultists have their, they don't say that's all bull. They say, yeah, that means something, because there used to be civilization or civilizations that lived in a much closer relationship to spiritual truth. Let's say they were the realized God men in time, and that symbol or allegory of Shiva is always destroyed to rebuild in its, I would have to say, dimensional representation of reality, that the God-man exists and is therefore always becoming the God-man by incarnating into the world of flesh to struggle against good and evil, to become the enlightened man, to apparently lose that again. I mean, I'm throwing this out there as just guessing from our own record through the scripture. As I say, the occultists see it as, okay, they call it Atlantis, because Plato did, and Atlantis ruled the world through superior technology and disappeared, and we sunk deeper. And I guess not knowing their story well enough, but being able to anticipate from what I do know, that it must be imagined that they picture through all their realms that this earth is the lowest. We're at that lowest. That's why we live in this suffering. So must be through this sinking to this realm that we've fallen through what was, say, Atlantis before us, and need to rise out of this back to, on our way to superior civilizations that continue to progress. And that is their aim and their pressing urgency. Why wait and linger in ignorance when your duty is to progress in wisdom? The light is forward in the progression of wisdom, not waiting in ignorance for God to come and save you. And so you can see how their position puts them at odds with anyone who's got a God outside themselves, who doesn't see in themselves righteousness needing to be developed, not in response to God's requirement, but the human requirement. And that's why it's so close. When you see how close they really are and how easy I see it's going to be for the Antichrist to simply show you that what you already think is really right. You got to be a good person. Why? Not because God's going to throw you in hell. Because like Jesus said, you can do greater things than you've seen me do. But you can only do those when you learn right from wrong. And you can only do that by experiencing right and wrong. And yes, of course, if you do wrong, you're going to get the karmic effect of that. That's the reason that you want to do right. See, where I find another big question in it all that I'm trying to answer on this second part of understanding the people that pull the strings and their vision of their justification is, how is it if these wise masters and this getting beyond good and evil, how can the right thing to do be all of this destruction? Which makes me wonder, who do that? Maybe they only destroy certain people. Maybe they have quite a method to their madness, because they, again, it does not fit their philosophy. They believe they are trying to be Christ-like, but being Christ-like is not obeying the 10 Commandments. It's advancing spiritually beyond what this temporal world displays as this dualism of black and white, and feeling the need to choose black or white, good or evil. How do you finally become both? That's what's truly right. That's what's good. That's what ultimate reality is. I mean, I don't know how to put it. How are good and evil compatible as the same thing? But that's the great mystery. How are black and white compatible as the same thing? Man and woman shall become one flesh, right? It's the mystery that the mystery schools seek to find the answers to. That they're able to show their students, look at religion, and you can obviously see that that's not the answer. God in his sky, watching everybody, looking for believers, who are going to kill everybody else if you're not good by some, what? The 10 Commandments standard? But who can live up to it? You mean you can just fake it? You can pretend to be good? What about what Paul said about love? So I'm not sure. I'm getting off a little bit in a tangent, because I'm trying to present what I think are the pertinent questions in my own mind. How do they answer? When they say Paul's an enlightened, initiated, and all this, how do they answer for Paul saying, if I have all the faith that can move mountains but have not love? How do they relate love to being beyond good and evil? If love is what's beyond good and evil, then love is what allows you to, kill a child. I guess if it's the wrong child. So these things to me become some of the questions that I'm trying to set myself up, or whoever's going to be here in the time when this apostasia is come to the full, and this Messiah comes along to start teaching truth and showing biblical truth and showing the true teaching of the Messiah, which I believe this false Messiah will do. And how do we answer for that? What's the answer except to say, but how is that love? What's that love resulted in the world? So this Messiah has to come along and blame these people, these bankers. That's why I believe they're all being set up in our modern day. That's part of the setup. They were protected in secrecy before and revered. They were made to look like revered people, the J.P. Morgan or Rockefeller or Rothschilds, or any of these people were made to be, it's who everybody wanted to be, an elitist. Now they're showing these people to be the dirty buggers, the bankers, and the scoundrels that are ruining everything. And I think that's on purpose, because these have to be shown to be the scapegoats, because the Messiah has to come along, remember. In order to fool the world, the Messiah's got to be the one that comes along and says, hey, we got to share. We got to give. Jesus said, take care of the needy. The Messiah's got to come down to break down walls and give, not kill. It's all these other people who are in position already that will kill for him, when he simply says what we have to do is we all have to take this mark of brotherhood and live by it. The authorities will say, okay, you heard the Messiah. Darn it, now this is what we have to do. And so I see this all coming, and that's what the study's about now, you guys, to put some of these pieces in their place, especially with regard, for my own self, to the last couple of 100 years in which we've gone from these revolutions of the Enlightenment that took a world that still was really steeped in the traditions that they'd been sold about their pie in the sky God in heaven that anyone could have read before and seen that wasn't true. They could have done the history and seen it had been paganized from the time of Constantine, that it reflected nothing of the teaching of Jesus, that the word Gehenna was not hell, and that Hades was not hell, and that Paul wasn't sending anyone to hell. Why was the church all through the time even of Aquinas still teaching that? Why was that official? So obviously it was meant to be, because I see why, because it was meant to take the place of paganism. And what was paganism but the exoteric relationship of the story that could contain the story but be sold to the masses in order to control the masses, their gods and their festivals and their duties and their responsibilities, like killing their firstborn child. Because if you can get people to do that, you sure do have control of them, don't you? And so that seems to be the secret, how to get people to kill their firstborn child and want to do it as the method of ultimate control. So I want to explore how this power, and I want to help people see, so that, because I've seen it now, and this book I say that I've just found and I want to read as part of our study, as like exhibition, exhibit A, because there's a lot of excellent research that takes us to this time, that shows, in this person's opinion, how the Catholic Church was undermined in its modern form through these secret societies and their ultimate plan of world domination. So he's trying to show us how the otherwise respectable or authoritative Catholic Church, which is the part I want to use for the other side of our argument, how someone like this, that could be doing the research to see how the church has been undermined to become what it is today, doesn't see how it was undermined long before that by the same people who descend to become the Illuminati and the Masons and the people that he exposes. So that provides me with, say, like a two-edged argument when we go through this book of his, because on the one hand, he's got the excellent research that we need to put some of these pieces into place for, who rules the world and how and why do we believe that? How do we, where's the evidence of that? Because this is what I want to tell you. It's not on BoobTube. And most of these names you're going to hear and the things you're going to see from his research isn't the stuff you get on BoobTube. You hear the same old names on BoobTube: Rothschilds, Zionism, Rockefellers, right? Those aren't the names you hear from this guy, who's going back to show you who was there at the Enlightenment, who were making the plans, who were fostering the revolution, and why. What were they trying to get at? And what they do about it? How'd they go about changing the world to be godless without knowing they were godless? And this is why in him showing Catholics that to try and justify that the good old authoritative Catholic religion was undermined this way, I want to show the audience listening to me how not only the good old USA, but pretty much everything we've known for the last 200 years has been undermined as a a theatrical reality in order that we might be set up for a day when they could complete their great work, since we live in a time when this great work has really come to its fruition. At least 200 years ago, when they really sat down to say, okay, let's create a group of people called the Illuminati that were, say, a much more visible element, the people that would really go out and recruit, to do the infiltration that was called for, to use the banking money that they had to make the final moves and get control of the world. And after 100 years of that, they were able to go to Pike and say, okay, we got everybody in place, what do we do? And so this is what I believe is really going on. And to give some real credibility to that, I want to take you through this book that lays it out in a well-researched examination of how the Catholic Church was completely undermined by the Illuminati of the Enlightenment that came out of the Enlightenment. And in that, I hope that the people that listen to me will see how, if that's the case, and goes back to demonstrate how over the last couple of 100 years, and up right until this book was released in 1982, this sort of control is being exercised, then what does that mean? What could that mean for our world today? Thanks for being here, and stay tuned for part 3.